On the bustling streets of downtown, where the golden rays of the morning sun reflected sharply off the windshields of honking taxis and the chatter of hurried pedestrians filled the air, Eric Thompson sat in his creaky old car, his heart heavy with unyielding worry. By day, he was a struggling delivery driver, shuttling packages and meals across the city from dawn until dusk. It was a job that, while honest, barely managed to keep the mounting bills at bay. His monthly expenses, always looming like a storm cloud, left little room for comfort. With a chipped coffee cup on the dashboard, he often sipped the last remnants of brew that he'd brewed in yesterday's pot, a daily ritual that marked both his fatigue and his refusal to let go of hope. Eric was a man of steadfast integrity. For him, values stemmed from the simplest lessons learned at the feet of his mother, who had raised him alone in a two-bedroom apartment, teaching him that kindness was the true currency of life. As heard the carefree laughter of children on their way to school and watched couples stroll hand in hand, he often felt a pang of longing, a desire for connection that felt so far away amid his daily toil. In a city overflowing with souls, he often felt like a ghost, unseen, unheard, and yet always watching. It was mid-afternoon when he pulled up outside a popular cafe, the familiar scent of fresh pastries wafting through the air, mixing with the exhaust fumes of iron beasts that roared past. His phone buzzed with a notification, a new delivery request. Shouldering his fraying backpack, he stepped out to grab the package resting on the passenger seat. As he made his way toward the cafe's entrance, his eyes wandered to the corner of the street, where he noticed her, a woman standing precariously at the crosswalk, her white cane tapping gently against the pavement, eyes clouded like the overcast sky hanging above. In that moment, Eric couldn't help but feel a kinship with her. She seemed to embody a world of unspoken struggles, navigating the bustling life around her, much like he did each day, weighed down by invisible burdens. Time seemed to slow as he approached, a sudden urgency surging in his veins. He had little time to spare, his last customer had rated him poorly for late deliveries and his phone reminded him that another notation could cost him significantly, but something deeper compelled him. "Excuse me," he said softly, his heart hammering as he stepped into her line of perception, allowing the words to carry the sincerity of his intent. "Would you like some help crossing the street?" The woman's head turned slightly, her focus emanating warmth, despite the disorienting shadows that veiled her sight. "Thank you," she replied with a voice that radiated gratitude, yet trembled slightly under the weight of uncertainty. As she extended her hand, Eric felt an odd mixture of trepidation and resolve. He took her slender wrist gently, guiding her with a reassuring beauticious grip. With each tap of her cane, Eric felt a strange sense of clarity. The cacophony of the urban landscape faded, replaced by rhythmic chirps of traffic lights and the gentle ebb and flow of their movement. He could almost hear the sighs of relief from the sidewalk cafe patrons, watching this moment unfold. "What's your name?" he asked, breaking the silence as they reached the other side. "Clara," she said, a smile playing on her lips. "And you?" "Eric," he replied, feeling the heaviness in his chest lift with every fleeting moment spent in her company. They stood together at the curb, just for a moment, sharing a connection that surpassed the ordinary. It was an exchange of vulnerability that was so rare in his life. "You'd think," Clara said, her light laugh ringing like a silver bell, "that I would get used to it. But every street feels like a gamble." Eric chuckled, appreciating her resilient spirit. "We all have our crossing to make," he replied, his own heart with an understanding that blurred the lines between their two worlds. "Sometimes it just takes a little help to get there." Both stood quietly for a moment, the city's pulse throbbed around them, but in their shared silence, a stillness hung like a sacred truce, untainted by the noise of drivers impatient to be on their way. As the sound of honking horns snapped them back to reality, Eric fully realized how little he had to give, yet how significant an impact it could make. An ember of emotion ignited within him. It was not just the connection that had influenced him, it was the acknowledgement of shared struggles in an indifferent world, the notion that even amid hardship, moments of compassion could change the course of someone's day, or life. Clara smiled back at him, and he could feel the warmth radiating from the simple kindness they had shared. Her smile painted the day brighter, echoing a quiet promise of connection. And in that exchange, something began to shift in Eric. It was the idea that, much like their conversation, small acts of kindness could intertwine destinies in ways unimaginable, or perhaps it was the brief flicker of hope igniting the embers of his forgotten dreams. As he returned to his routine, the unrelenting beat of his financial obligations began to fade into the background. The deep ache of his monetary struggles became a backdrop to a burgeoning feeling, an understanding that the path ahead could hold more than just bills and deliveries. Maybe, just maybe, he was on the brink of a transformation that would reshape not only his day but his entire life. The following week saw Eric Thompson traversing the streets with an unusual lightness in his heart. The warmth of his encounter with Clara had left a mark, transforming his mundane routine into something infused with possibility. With each package dropped off, every coffee delivered, and the cheerful greetings exchanged with customers, he began to notice the subtleties of life, the miraculous nuance within what he once considered the mechanical hustle of the city. One particularly sweltering afternoon, he pulled up outside a small bookstore nestled between two high-rises. He had a package for the owner, a woman named Betty who had run the shop for nearly 20 years. The scent of aged paper and the whispers of pages turning beckoned him inside. Eric knew Betty personally, not just from his deliveries but also from their brief chats, where she'd shared tales of her early years launching the store with limited funds. Today, however, he found the mood in the store unusually somber. As he stepped through the door, he was met with a sense of heaviness that hung in the air, dimming the sparkle of the usually vibrant shop. The warm glow of reading lamps was overshadowed by worry etched on Betty's face. She looked up from the counter, her usually bright eyes dimmed by concern. "Eric," she greeted him with forced cheer. "What brings you in today?" He placed Thej on the counter, adjusting the messenger bag that felt heavier than usual. "Just making my rounds like in the old days." "What's got you down? You look like you've lost your favorite book." Her laughter came haltingly as she leaned in closer, lowering her voice as if confiding a secret. "Business has been slow, you know? I'm struggling to meet the rent this month. And..." She hesitated, searching for words. "I received a letter stating they're raising it next month. I really don't know what I'm going to do." Eric's heart sank. "I'm sorry to hear that, Betty. This place means so much to you, and to all of us who cherish it." "I'll figure something out," she said, attempting to sound upbeat. "But it's more complicated than just a few slow days. With ebooks and large online retailers, it's just so hard to compete these days." Feeling a deep urge to help, Eric racked his brain. What if we organized a local author event? We could invite independent writers, promote the day on Socialia. People love to support local talent, and I could help spread the word. Betty's brow lifted, intrigued. That could work. But I'd need to hire a few local musicians to draw in more foot traffic and set up refreshments. I don't have the budget for that, though. "Leave that to me," Eric said with newfound determination. "I can cover the costs, and maybe we can work something out with the musicians for a percentage of any book sales." "Are you sure?" Betty questioned, searching his eyes for reassurance. "Absolutely. It's the least I can do for a place that's already given me so much." Before they parted, Eric promised to reach out to some local artists he'd met over the years. They exchanged contact information, and with a spring in his step, he left the bookstore, inspired. Little did he know how much that simple act of kindness and belief in Betty would ripple into his own world. As days turned into a week, Eric threw himself into organizing the event, excited by Fend purpose. He reached out to his musician friends, who generously agreed to perform in exchange for a small cut of any book sales. Local authors signed up to showcase their stories, and many others who learned about the event began volunteering for setup and promotional tasks. The day of the event arrived, revealing a picturesque afternoon surrounded by blooming flowers and birds chirping harmoniously. The cafe, which usually bustled solely with coffee lovers, transformed into a vibrant hub of activity, adorned with makeshift banners and the rich aroma of borrowed cakes from nearby bakeries. Betty greeted every patron with an exuberance that revitalized her spirit. Eric stood at the entrance, welcoming friends, old acquaintances, and new faces eager to dive into the world of stories and music. Clara, who had learned of the event through Eric's social media posts, arrived, her gleeful presence a reminder of the small toll of kindness that had set this all in motion. As the sun below the horizon, coloring the sky in shades of pink and orange, the event blossomed. People danced to soothing melodies, children scampered around holding their favorite stories, and the atmosphere resonated with laughter and joy. By the time the sun began to set, the store had seen more traffic than it had seen in months. Eric found Betty amidst the commendations and cheers as the authors signed books, their faces glowing with pride. "Can you believe this?" she said, her laughter mingling with tears of joy as she wiped her eyes. "Thank you, Eric. You've saved this place." He felt a swell of pride, the warmth he had forged alongside Clara translating into the smile that lit up Betty's face. "We all came together for you and the love of stories. This place is more than just a bookstore, it's a part of the community. It's worth every effort." Just as the last performance wrapped up, a familiar face emerged from the crowd, Mrs. Collins, the owner of the neighboring with sparkly eyes that twinkled under the night sky. She approached. "Hi, everyone," she shouted. "I heard what you were doing here. I wanted to introduce myself again. I think this bookstore is marvelous, and I want to extend a little partnership. If you ever decide to do more events, I'd love to offer free appetizers in exchange for promoting my shop across your social media. We could provide discounts for those who purchase here on event days." That night, the bookstore raised enough money to not only cover the rent for the month but also help purchase new inventory to replace old books. The attendees left with smiles on their faces, and Eric knew the evening had forged long-lasting connections. As Betty hugged Eric before he left, she slipped an envelope into his hand. "What's this?" he asked, surprised. "It's a little something for all your hard work," she said, though he noticed her hesitation. Eric waved it away. "Your gratitude is enough. I'm just glad to have been part of something so beautiful." "Open it," she urged, adding a hint of insistence to her tone. Confused, he peeled open the envelope to reveal a check. His eyes widened in disbelief as he saw the amount written on it, $1,200. "Betty, I can't," he began, but she interrupted him. "Just think of it as a thank you for taking the time to care about our community, Eric. Kindness begets kindness, and you deserve to be rewarded for the love you shared." With a heart full of gratitude, Eric stepped outside into the crisp night, the stars twinkling overhead as they whispered secrets of hope and promise. He grasped the check tightly, feeling the warmth insulate his being, not just in financial gain but in newfound purpose. The road ahead was still laden with challenges. He still had bills to pay and a mother to care for, but now, a spark of hope burned brighter than before. As the echoes of winter's cold began to fade, so too did the shadows that had once loomed over him. That evening, the celebration of connection, Eric's experience grew multifaceted, a recognition of the strength found not only in kindness but the possibility of changing his trajectory. The universe had conspired, pushing him toward Clara and Betty, their lives intertwined through a simple act of goodness. In that moment, he realized with every package delivered, every connection made, he could reshape not just his material world, but the very fabric of the community around him, a revelation that, like the ripples of kindness he had stirred, would continue to unfold in ways he had yet to imagine. Spring gradually unfurled its splendor throughout the city, weaving vibrant colors into the fabric of life. Eric Thompson felt a resurgence of energy coursing through him, a rejuvenation that reminded him of the seed of hope planted the day he helped Clara navigate in the busy street. That singular act, simple and genuine, had catalyzed a magnificent chain reaction, transforming not just his but enriching the lives of those around him. With Betty's bookstore flourishing from the community event and more partnerships sprouting, Eric stepped into a new role. He transitioned from merely a delivery driver into an integral force, encouraging local merchants and fostering a renewed sense of community. Excited by the possibilities, he dedicated his evenings to brainstorming ways to further support the local economy, rallying fellow residents to shop small and support one another. Clara, ever resourceful and visionary, joined him in his mission. As spring's warmth settled into the city's bones, they began to dream up a community festival that would unite local businesses with artisans, musicians, and creatives, one that would embody the very spirit of compassion and kindness that connected all of them. Over coffee one bright afternoon at their favorite cafe, the two friends spread out a map of the neighborhood across the table, navigating ideas like a treasure map. "What if we host a Spring Awakening festival?" Clara suggested, her finger tracing along the streets. "We could create a space for artists and vendors, hold workshops, and include activities for the whole family." The bakery, bookstore, local bands, everyone could participate. I love it, Eric replied, his heart swelling at the thought. We could promote it in advance, and I know a few local bloggers who would help get the word out. They set to work and, over the following weeks, momentum built like the swelling clouds before a summer storm. Clara's natural charisma shone as she approached vendors, while Eric tapped into his network, drumming up support and inviting community members to join. News of the festival spread like wildflowers, blossoming beyond their initial expectations. Days turned into weeks, and with every meeting, every brainstorming session, and every connection solidified, Eric and Clara's friendship deepened. They grew to admire one another's strengths, Eric's belief in community and inclusivity, and Clara's resilience and ingenuity. It became a partnership that felt palpable, a powerful reminder of what can blossom from acts of kindness. As the day of the festival approached, Eric felt a simmering mix of anticipation and nerves. In the back of his mind, remnants of uncertainty lingered, whispers suggesting that life could just as easily slip away from him again. But he pushed those thoughts aside, reminding himself of the many lives they had sparked with kindness along the way. This event was larger than just them, it symbolized healing and hope for the entire community. The day of the Spring Awakening Festival dawned bright and clear, with petals swirling on gentle breezes as people began to gather. Tents adorned with colorful banners flanked the square, with goods artfully displayed. Musicians strummed cheerful tunes from one corner while laughter underpinned the air. Clara's guide dog, Finn, trotted beside her like a gentle soaking up the festival atmosphere. As the day unfolded, Eric moved from station to station, affording him glimpses into the lives being celebrated. Young children painted faces amidst a colorful array of paints, while students strummed guitars and showcased their musical talents. Local artists exhibited vibrant paintings, telling stories of resilience through their work. Each interaction ignited warmth in his heart, the fruits of their endeavors brightening the once dim shadows of doubt that had followed him. At last, it was time for Clara and Eric to take center stage beneath the azure sky. Holding hands, they approached the microphone, surrounded by friends, neighbors, and familiar faces who had come to celebrate alongside them. Eric glanced over the crowd, seeing a tapestry of connected hearts. "Welcome, everyone." Clara's voice rang out, unwavering and empowered. "Thank you for joining us for this incredible day." Eric took a breath, feeling the support of the community over him. "Today is a celebration of our resilience and compassion," he began, his voice strong. "It's about lifting each other up and reminding ourselves of the power we hold when we join together." The applause that followed sent ripples of joy shooting through him. "We want to remind you that every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the potential to create significant change. Just like when I helped Clara across that street. It may seem inconsequential, but through our kindness, we can inspire hope and create magic in our community." Their words resonated through the crowd, echoing like a shared heartbeat, and Eric felt a swell of gratitude. Clara added, "It's an honor to stand here with all of you today. And just like our friendship sprouted from a simple act beyond ourselves, we hope you will carry this connection with you today and into tomorrow." As they concluded, the crowd erupted in cheers and applause, the air thick with appreciation. Eric saw smiling faces everywhere, people who had come together, embodying the very essence of their purpose. By the end of the festival, the warmth of connection lingered like sunlight on their cheeks. Vendors basked in the success of their sales, the joy of community reverberating through every alley and corner. Clara and Eric wandered amidst the stalls, greeted by local friends and supporters, exchanging stories and laughter. As the sun began to set, a shining light reflecting on their faces, Clara turned to Eric, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "I cannot express how much you've changed my life, Eric. Your kindness has impacted so many others, and I truly believe it'll only grow from here." "No," Eric replied, shaking his head, "I owe it all to you. We all have the power to lift others up. And look at what we've accomplished together. Just imagine what we can do moving forward." "Speaking of which," Clara said, her eyes dancing with excitement, "I've been thinking about expanding our outreach to could approach local schools and organizations to establish a regular program that involves volunteering. I want others to experience the magic of kindness like we have." Eric beamed at the idea, his heart racing at the thought of creating a sustainable connection in the community. "You're brilliant, Clara. I'd love to help." The seeds they planted by accident had now grown into a garden full of wonder, potential, and endless possibilities. As they began to outline their plans, Eric felt the pangs of joy mixed with gratitude wash over him. The financial burdens that once loomed so prominently in his mind felt manageable, no longer defining his existence. From the money raised during the festival and the continued success of Betty's bookstore, he had been able to save significantly toward his mother's medical bills, gradually easing that pressure. As he reflected on his journey, from a weary delivery driver to a community champion, he felt undeniably proud. Not only had Clara led him through his own transformation, but together, they were crafting a legacy of compassion that resonated throughout the city. Eric understood that true wealth lies not only in one's financial gain but in the connections and love shared with others. The following weeks saw the birth of their outreach initiatives, where children, teens, and even adults gathered to learn about kindness and support one another, creating tangible change in their lives. They organized workshops that involved local artists in teaching everything from painting to crafting, encouraging expressions that would resonate through the community. With each week, Eric witnessed the ripple effect of kindness as it expanded, creating an intricate web of compassion throughout the streets he once roamed alone. His inspiring friendship with Clara transformed him. No longer was he just a delivery driver, he had become a bridge of hope, passion, and service. One evening, as Eric sat reflecting on their journey, Clara strolled by his side at their cafe, wrapping her scarf closer around her. "What do you think?" she asked, sipping her coffee. "I think." Eric paused, gathering his words but feeling the weight of truth behind them. "I think we started a movement. People are motivated, inspired to give back. I never knew the impact of being a part of something bigger than myself." Clara smiled knowingly, her white cane resting nearby as she listened intently. "You took the first step, Eric. And remember, in every single moment you choose to act with kindness, you are teaching others to do the same." A thought tugged at the edges of his mind, and in that instant, he understood something profound. "You know, we can do even more. We should create a network of kindness champions, a space for everyone to share their stories of goodwill and connection. Let's inspire them to share their acts of kindness with others." "Yes. Let's do it," Clara exclaimed, joy flooding her expression. With a resolute humor in their eyes, they began to dream up their next adventure, fueled by the hope and connection they'd forged together. What had begun as a simple act of kindness on an ordinary day had transformed into not just a movement, but an awakening, changing their lives, the lives of those around them, and beyond. As he stepped outside the cafe, Eric felt the gentle caress of a warm breeze lift around him. He took a deep breath, letting the fresh air fill his lungs as he looked at the familiar streets. Currency had shifted, what once weighed him down had elevated him into the light, allowing him to see beyond the surface of everyday life. Now, he was living proof of the power of kindness, a hope-fueled being, igniting inspiration in others and planting seeds of passion in every heart he touched. The echoes of their efforts reverberated through the community, illuminating futures yet uncharted by the shadows of fear. With courage in their hearts and friendship by their side, Eric and Clara stepped boldly into the next chapter of their lives, believing that together, not only would they illuminate their world, but they would continue to impact lives, proving that kindness wasn't just a moment, it was a life journey, an expansive hope that knew no bounds.